yourself to do something.
Yeah. For me, it starts like most people. Like, I loved Studio Ghibli movies as a kid, and I loved Pixar and The Iron Giant, and I just loved drawing all throughout my childhood. And in college, I went to UVA, wahoo! And I double majored in drama and computer science because I still love storytelling and theater and writing, but I also still loved the tech side of filmmaking, and honestly there is nothing more techy than animation, really. So I was still taking 3D animation courses at UVA, I was learning Maya, I was learning Blender, and motion capture was my CS thesis. I did that so that I could write about movies in my computer science thesis and go, in Star Wars, they started doing with this. And it worked. But ever since then, my first gig in the animation industry, the Television Academy Foundation has an amazing internship program in animation. I was the class of 2021 animation intern, and that was a PA on a TV show. Got to then, after that, go to be a coordinator at Disney, and have since been just bouncing around project to animated project. But I'm very much more on the production leadership side of animation than literally the person who is drawing every single frame.
Love it. My book just knocked out my first 5 questions.
No,
but I think that's a beautiful segue. I'm just really curious as to now, how would you describe your artistic style, like, that you use currently?
In some sense, I still feel like I'm finding my style. Like, I think everybody has a natural style, and mine, this is not the answer I was expecting to give, actually, to this question, but animation can have such a highly technical side to it, with the computer geekery stuff, which I actually really get off on. Like, I love the fusion of highly technical and artistic. There's something about those two things that really play off of each other and have always interested me. And it's kind of coming to it now in the world of animation. It's such a great place for you to exercise both sides of that, our brains. And anyway, so my stuff has progressively, I think I started out more as just kind of a competent generalist, and progressively over time I'm becoming more and more of like a niche, weird, generative art guy who's interested in just pulling whatever interests I have into it, but interested in these technical aspects of bringing in math and science and physics and simulations into animation, without hopefully losing sight of the human and what makes it really interesting for other people as well to see. So anyway, if I'm any good at this, which I'm still trying to decide, it's about fusing these two things, the human and this highly technical. Animation is one area where, for me anyway, it's really interesting. I can try to do that.
How are you still trying to figure it out if you're good?
This isn't confirmation yet. Oh man. With me, in both my live action work and animation work, I love very surreal stuff. I love very dreamy stuff. I love tapping into kind of subconscious imagery. Even in my live action stuff, I will still storyboard, or even before I write something, I'll draw out the image in my head of like, no, I need this frame needs to appear at some point, and build the story around that. So I very much start from the visuals and then work backwards and kind of tap into those internal connections. I'm very Lynchian in that way, but I always love to kind of bring that back and bring it out. Even in my comedic stuff, it always gets a little freaky and weird by the end.
We absolutely love the words on you.
Yes, it does that a lot.
That was, again, a great segue. I feel like you should be the moderator today.
Yes.
My next question was, so when you start a new project, what comes first to you? You know, is it the story, is it the character, is it the visual work? And then also the part 2 of that is, how do you choose between 2D or 3D?
I'll go first. for me, it's also the choice of live action or animation. Because when I first wrote The Worm's Eye View the Bird, I thought it'd be live action. For context, for people who haven't seen it, it's about a girl who falls in love with a worm, and they go on dates, and he meets her parents, and then he stops treating her right, and it's very dramatic. And I thought the whole thing would be live action, and I'd have like a live actor with like some live worm bait, and it'd be very disgusting. But everyone I showed the script to was like, this has to be animated, like for the acting potential of this little worm guy and the character development he needs to kind of convey the tragedy of this story, he's got to be animated. And I was like, you're right. Yes, it's true. But coming from the animation world, I knew how hard that'd be. I knew how time-consuming that'd be. And then I was finally like, okay, this is finally a story that has to be told in animation. There's no other medium for it. All right, time to dedicate the next year of my life. You know, like that kind of. Here we go. But yeah, it's always, and then I love 2D because I wanted it to feel like a children's book. And then when it gets a little mature and a little dark and a little scary, it takes you by surprise.
Yeah, you definitely used a lot of colors that felt like you were flipping the pages of a book.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's about kind of like that childhood innocence taken away from your first love when you break up and you're like, what? So it was very thematic. Yeah.
What about you, Jonah?
Well, a lot of the projects that I've worked on have been like documentary films or projects where I'm a part of a larger crew, so my freedom to decide what kind of style of animation I'm going to use is still there, 2D or 3D, but usually already it's been decided that we want an animation in this section. Not always, sometimes it kind of comes about organically. One thing that I think I'm convinced of is animation, no matter what form it takes, cell, hand-drawn stuff, or even this more computery stuff, is such a powerful form of communication to people that film directors seem to kind of understand this, and I think that's why they've been including it in movies so heavily for a while, and even documentaries, where it seems like that's kind of a strange place to do something as playful and free as animation. But you're talking directly to people's visual centers of the brain, which are massive compared to our auditory and verbal processing side. So your ability to convey information is the bandwidth that you're using is like 40 times larger than our verbal side. So anyway, what you are employing is this incredibly powerful tool to talk directly to people without even language across all understanding, because our brains have adapted to be extremely visual. That's a pretty just general human trait. Anyway, so it's more for me like, what is going to be the most effective way of communicating what needs to be communicated? You're trying to, I hate to say it, but you're trying to often influence your audience. Not always. Sometimes you're just trying to, well, even if it's emotional manipulation of a sort, trying to get them to feel something, it's still influence. So what is an effective way of doing that? Is it 2D? Is it 3D? Is it illustration? Is it a chart or graph? I don't know, but it kind of depends on what's happening then. And then kind of understanding the power of this tool set and picking the right paintbrush, in a sense, to use is how I view it. And there's certain paintbrushes that I'm better at than others too, so I'm going to favor a certain style perhaps, but I try to be open about it and go with what I think is going to be most effective.
So would you guys consider yourselves storytellers or visual artists?
Well, very much a storyteller for me.
Or somewhere in between?
The film is my canvas. No. Very much story first. I loved your answer because I'm like, oh yeah, once you're in animation, suddenly every color is a choice. Every little quirk about the character design is a choice. Every single blocking and movement. And then once you're actually animating, suddenly you're like, should she stare at him for 6 frames or for 8 frames? Like, it becomes so minute, and you always have to just, as the creator and the storyteller, have the bigger story at large, in mind, and knowing this is what's going to convey that moment better. It's a million little choices. That's animation.
And one of the choices is, and I think this is probably true across all art, is what you leave out. Like, sometimes having fewer frames to tell a certain action tells it better. Like fewer drawings in between. Like if something is very smooth versus something being here and then here, you'd think that this would be less real and less impactful for an audience if it's a frame here and a frame here, but that is not actually the case.
Yeah.
Often. Anyway.
I've got an example from my field as well of this, in that the first half, the worm is cute. He's bouncy, he's adorable, he's emotive. He doesn't have a face or anything, but you just love him. And the second half, when he's not treating her right and he's distant and he's emotionally vacant from the relationship, we purposely chose not to animate him, not a single frame. It's just him. There's like a shot of him just sleeping on the bed, just like thinking, and he's just not moving at all.
I didn't notice that until you brought that up.
Yeah, and then you get it now. You're like, oh, he's gone. That's it. So it's that kind of stuff.
It's so powerful. He's talking directly to someone's subconscious. They don't notice it. The audience doesn't really notice, but they notice it.
And when you see him just sitting there in bed, ignoring her cries, you're like, this monster.
I hate that word.
There was a moment he just like went into the ground.
Yes.
And she was just like.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, no, wow, that's interesting. So I mean, animation has the power to connect very deeply with audiences. Like, why do you think that is?
I think it taps like our childhood. I feel like it taps our like inner child that we all have inside.
Yeah, and there's also this, maybe it's because it's not a real human being, there's this level of abstraction where it kind of gives the audience a little bit more freedom to...
Come with me, come have fun with me.
I don't know, I don't really know why that is. I think it's something like that.
I think it just finally is also good escapism, just from real life and stuff. You can go to any world, you can be anything. Yeah.
Who wants real life?
Yeah.
Anything you want out there.
And I think animation is a really good medium for dealing with really hard topics because it kind of puts that little soft barrier in between.
Or very boring topics.
Or very,
in documentaries, there's so much having to be told or taught to your audience, and that's all exposition. It's all verbal. It's where everybody goes. I'm going to explain why, the history of, whatever it is that you're trying to talk about in the movie.
Yeah.
If you can come up with some awesome pictures to do the same thing, it's better. I can't explain why. It just is.
I agree with that. I found myself recently going back and watching my favorite childhood cartoons like Recess.
Yeah.
And even it gives a different meaning to life. Like there were really genuine and deep lessons that were being taught on that playground. Yeah. That maybe we didn't think about as we were kids, right?
I rewatched Kiki's Delivery Service as an adult, and I'm like, this is a movie about moving to a new city and getting burnt out and growing, and as a kid I'm like, pretty witch.
I love this.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that they deal with those hard-hitting topics.
So where do you find the inspiration to animate? Maybe outside of animation?
Other animators often. I mean, I'll see things and I'll be like, that is genius. I am totally going to steal that idea.
We are always inspired by someone else's creations.
Yeah.
I would also say other indie animators. There's a beautiful online community of indie animation that is thriving more than ever. And just seeing the kind of stuff that people can just make in their own homes just by themselves, you're like, okay.
Animation is so hard. People don't often I think probably the people in this room realize that
you guys know.
Interested in it, but a second of animation, of high quality animation, could take weeks, especially for one human being to make. So the amount of thought that goes into every single second is tremendous. And I think there's something about that makes animators in general pretty supportive of each other and a nice community too, which is a nice part that keeps helps.
Animators are very a very good community.
Yeah.
Of just, we love to support each other. Out in LA, we have like a convention called Lightbox where people are trading stickers of all their characters and stuff. If they have, if they do stop motion, they'll literally carry around their doll or their puppet in like a backpack to show off all their hard work. Like, it's very strong bonds between people.
And it kind of goes across, like there's the cell animators and there's the nerdy animators like me, but it doesn't really matter. We're all in the same battle together, and there's something really nice about it.
We're all just battling one keyframe at a time.
Do you ever like animate your everyday life, like just in reality as you're walking through the world?
Repeat that?
Do you ever like animate your real life, like your every day to day, like just you feel like you're living in an animation?
Like, I think so. Like, very often things happen in my life, and I'm like, this should be a sitcom right now. Like, this is ridiculous. If I were to tell someone about this, they would not believe me. But I also feel like the reverse has happened, where since doing animation, now I just approach life a little goofier and a little less serious. I mean, it's better. It's more fun that way, you know?
And it's I almost love wasting time sometimes on these little details of real life. Like, you know, there'll be a butterfly that is landing on something and it does these extra little flutters that aren't really, if you're trying to animate a butterfly, you don't need to, or a moth or whatever it is, you don't need to add all these little details, or a leaf just blowing aimlessly in the wind.
Things.
These quiet moments that are just beautiful, and you can animate them. Occasionally I do. It's so kind of, from a storytelling standpoint, it might be a bit of a waste of time, but I think also those moments help.
Those details are what bring environments to life. Never disregard a wind, tree blowing, you know, some dust going by, and never disregard moments for characters to sit and just blink and just think. I think a lot of, it's very
There's
hard.
There's enough of that in life too.
Yeah.
In animation, it's very easy to just have every single thing be
and I was
meaningful.
bouncing off the walls, you know. Yeah.
So would you say that it's tougher to like express like creative freedom or work within constraints, considering that?
Yeah, it's tough. Well, I think it's tough because you have to maintain an idea for such a long period of time. So, or an emotion. It's almost like someone talking in incredibly slow motion because you're dealing with every single frame now is spread out over hours, or whatever it happens to be. In that case, how long can you maintain how long can I maintain a concept in my brain before I move on to something else? Animation is interesting in that respect, because maybe as animators we're better at that than other people. I don't know, but I think that might be part of it.
We're really good at running marathons, because that's what it feels like to make
playing the world back in slow motion and feeling the
I think the one thing I missed from live action when I was making my animated short was just the spontaneity on set, that you could try to improvise and move things around, and let's try it a different way, a different take, and you kind of lose that in animation. But what you gain in animation is that I have a huge team of people who will touch just one shot, and I will write the story, you know, then the storyboard artist will kind of add a hat on top of that, and I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that gag in that shot or that kind of performance. Love it. And then it goes to the animator, and the animator adds a hat on top of that, and it's like, well, what if the worm did a little shimmy? You know, like little things like that. Hats get still added on top. It's a little less spontaneous, it's a lot slower, but it still feels like you're creating something together as a group, which still feels very magical. Yeah.
So Karen, your film actually credited over 20 animators.
Yes.
Which is a lot, just considering like I think there's about 20 people in this room, right? And to think about the group work that comes with that. And I heard yesterday you say that everybody was a little bit of everywhere in the world, not just the country. So talk to us about your process to finding those animators, as well as what it was like to communicate your creative vision for what you saw, even though the person was maybe not in your state, but in a different time zone.
If you come from live action, all of animation just feels like post. You know what I mean? Where it's all virtual, it's one little note at a time on one little shot, version by version by version. This is why it's so, if you can produce animation, you can produce anything. On my end, I'm tracking every single shot through the entire animation pipeline process, from storyboards to backgrounds to roughs to cleans to color to shadow to VFX composite. This is all in a G sheet with every single shot listed out. Assigning shots to animators. I had a lovely coordinator to help me make weekly goals for everybody. You know, check in, hey, how's that shot coming? We make sure we only can assign so many, because literally one human can only take maybe 5 shots in that whole film over the course of the whole, and it still took like 9 months to make, you know. So it's the ultimate project management thing, but you can use Google Sheets, which is free, and we did the whole production fully on Discord, where I would give notes back, send approval, send a little check mark emoji, and be like, you're good to move on to the next shot. So it's doable, but you definitely need to rally people to be like, all right, guys, get ready. It's about to be, you know, the next year of doing this back and forth. So yeah.
Wow, that reminds me of like a college group project where you
Yes.
get 5 people to
Right, and then you do it all
that one
yourself.
thing.
Yeah. Here
No.
you really can't do it all yourself, so.
That's phenomenal. If
Yeah.
you need a project manager, it sounds like that's the person. I've got a chance to see a lot of your animations and animations that you were a part of. You spoke earlier about the different groups that you were working on. It's just a question for both of you, actually, but how tough is it to like remain yourself in your individual like artistic way while also working in a group of animators who may have completely different styles or different ideas to contribute?
Some animators, I think, early on kind of establish a signature style, and then they are able to get hired for that. And I always kind of, I didn't choose that route. Like, I just was a generalist who could try to say yes to anything that came my way. Some people will get hired because they are the animator who does this amazing whatever it is. But I think both routes are equally valid. The generalist, I got a huge variety of different things, because I just said yes to everything that came my way. But anyway, if you're dealing on a job then that is dealing with a whole bunch of other animators and video editors and directors and producers and egos and all this kind of stuff, it's like any creative project when you're on a big team. Behind the scenes, I've found it's often more chaotic and messy than people would expect.
Yep.
You know, and deadlines change, and people are stressed out, and I'm stressed out, and I'm working crazy hours. But it's fun. I think there's something about watching something take shape that's bigger than just me that is really exciting. I can tell, like, the more fun projects for me were the ones that involved like 5, 10, 15 other people, honestly. The ones where it was all on me, I had tremendous freedom to kind of do everything in the way that I thought was right. And to myself, I thought that's what I wanted, but those often ended up being less fun somehow.
Just a grind.
Just a grind.
Yeah.
Too much in my own head, baby.
Yeah, you're in it too deep.
Yeah.
It's like being on a playground by yourself versus being on a playground with other
Other
kids.
people,
Yeah.
right? You need that external stimulus because we're humans, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, because I hired so many external animators and contractors, I quickly realized that being an animation director, is also when I am casting people, just like actors. I'm like, oh, her style. I had a Disney animator who worked on Once Upon a Studio, who primarily worked on The Worm, because she's really good at just injecting character into this guy with no face, no arms, no limbs. She called him akin to like the magic carpet in Aladdin, you know, that kind of challenge of this guy has a personality. But then I have another another animator who's really good at humans, just really good at getting that subtlety and that emotion. And a lot of Jillian's, the female lead scenes where she's dancing, or she's blowing up, or she's mad, she's really good at just getting that physicality. So quickly, even when I'm onboarding people, I'm casting people into their right roles, and I'm like, this is a shot they'd be good at, this is a character they'd be good at, making sure that I'm setting everyone up for success, and that it kind of coagulates into a good cohesive project altogether.
That's very interesting. You said it took about 9 months for your film.
Yeah, it's like a baby.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
You've been in animation for a very long time. And animation has evolved rapidly with all these different types of tools. We now have AI, from hand-drawn to real-time rendering. How has that shift just impacted your work personally?
A lot. I mean, the tools keep getting better. There's this technique called rotoscoping, where you might be tracing an image. Rotoscoping, so it's you record a dog running, and in the old days you would go frame by frame, cutting that dog out. Let's say you wanted to put that dog on Venus, right? You would have to cut the dog out, frame by frame, as you do, right? And it's hard because a dog has hair and ears flopping all over the place. How do you decide what is part of the ear and what is now? So anyway, it was difficult, and you would often end up with this sort of very jittery, warpy thing, or you had to go through this technique of really breaking the dog down into leg by leg and doing each one individually. And then you could get a slightly smoother technique, but it was a more difficult process. Anyway, all that is a long way to say, now you've got this magic marker tool that you put over the dog. Somehow the computer, AI, whatever, knows, oh, dog, he wants to follow the dog. And there's and it does the hair fluffing off into the background perfectly, the way a human, it just couldn't. You just couldn't in the past. That tool is magical, it's wonderful. It allows artistic creation. A grumpy animator might complain about how in the old days we did it frame by frame, right? But I honestly have to say, it's nice not having to do it frame by frame, because it's freeing me to do the more fun thing, which is put the dog on Venus and see how that looks. And now I can have 5 dogs if I want.
Yeah.
I couldn't even
copy paste. Animations both at all these tools have become both more accessible, which is amazing. I love tools like Blender. You might know the famous story of the movie Flow, where it was just 5 dudes on Blender making a whole feature film, and it won an Academy Award. You can do this with free tools and the people you know, which is beautiful and exciting. But then at the same time, things like AI are okay, now it's super accessible. How do I make sure that there's still human originality in things as well? And making sure, which I feel like the reason indie animation is so in need right now, and people love it so much, is because they're like, oh my gosh, a human touch this, it was handcrafted.
Yeah.
I feel like more than ever it's getting attention online in a good way. Yeah.
I just love animation, and I think there's gonna be this it's a young, well, maybe it's not a young art form, but it's been around, since
the dawn of film.
The dawn of film. But in some ways, with all the new, especially 3D and computer animation, there's this new language of talking to other human beings that we're still exploring and figuring out. And that's really interesting to me. I think there are great ideas, amazing new ideas still to be had in this world that are going to get through to people in really exciting new ways that I haven't yet thought of, but they are out there, I can tell.
And what I love is 3D animation has only been alive really for 30-ish years. You know what I mean?
You're in a baby new art form that is a really rich and deep art form. I think as rich and deep as anything humans have made.
So where do you see animation going within the next 5-10 years?
Again, I think indie animation, it's about to have a renaissance. Just because I worked at Disney, so I can say this, but I'm like, the big studios are kind of like cool, going towards just the one style, that photorealistic look that they're like, we know people love it, we know this works, we're sticking to it, we don't want to take too many risks. And then what's lovely about indie animation is we can take so many risks. Visually, and it's creative, styling. We have the time and energy at least to do a lot of creative development right at the start and experiment. And you get beautiful films like Little Amelie that just came out, or there was another one that came out recently that was so good. It'll come to me later and I'll scream. But yeah, it's that kind of, path forward.
Yeah, but I think there's going to be new styles and new ideas that are going to come in the next 5 years that are going to be tremendous and are really going to sweep soon everybody's social media feed. And eventually the tools will be like, it's funny, like when documentaries were new, they had, Ken Burns was like the big documentary filmmaker, and then they put the Ken Burns effect into the editing software. They actually called it that, right? And now it's like, it's not even that cool anymore to zoom in on a photo. Right at the time, it was like, whoa! Anyway, soon there will be whatever this new technique that Karen comes up with, everybody's going to be, they'll program it into After Effects or whatever. The Karen Zipor effect.
That's how you'll know I made it, when I'm in Premiere. Use my effect, guys.
I love that.
Yeah.
The worm.
Yeah, right. It just wiggles across the screen.
No, I love that. So, are there any tools or innovations right now that really like genuinely excite you in your world?
I mean, you're Mr. Houdini.
Yeah.
That's an appropriate reaction to Houdini, for those who know Houdini.
Yeah, Houdini is a 3D software that I use that's notoriously
evil.
Basically, Houdini hates you. It's got the most unfriendly user interface, but it's somehow everybody who uses it, including me, is weirdly addicted to it. I can't explain. Anyway, it's insanely powerful. And it's used by most of the big studios for a lot of things nowadays.
I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. Blender, Maya was the proprietary 3D software. Like that's what Pixar and all those big companies use. And now Blender is out and it is free and it is just as powerful, if not more, to do the same kind of simulation renders, lighting renders, character animation. It's so readily available, it's almost scary. It's like, why aren't people taking more advantage of it?
Yeah, it's gotten, the free tools are insane.
Yeah.
What, still sticking on the future, are there some things that excite you and worry you about the future of animation?
Yeah, well, I never thought that AI would be doing creative stuff, at least not this early on. I was kind of hoping they'd go after the uncreative stuff first, but now it's creating pictures and it's doing a pretty good job. It's kind of, anyway, but that's a whole other subject. But I wouldn't say it scares me. I don't see it really replacing us, but I do see it becoming this tool in our lives that we're gonna, or maybe even a crutch if we want to be ungenerous to it, that we rely on maybe too much. I don't know. I'm still figuring that whole side out there, but it scares me a little bit that a lot of creative idea making is now going to be offloaded onto computers.
In at least the LA animation scene, AI is very taboo. If you even have AI concept art in your pitch deck for animation, they're like, we're not working with you. How dare you didn't hire a concept artist, So it's very don't even put it near your animation project. But then I've worked at Universal in the VFX department, and we had people coming in every day pitching us new AI software to help make VFX faster and easier. And it's stuff like, now we can use AI to better handle hair as it wisps in front of the green screen. It's very silly things. Michael B. Jordan's face replacement on his body double in Sinners, that's AI. He was trained on Michael B. Jordan's face to quickly just replace and put it on. So it's things like that where it's AI is here and it is used widely, but you always need a human at the end of the day. Never are you gonna get something straight from Google VO just right up there and people will go, yeah, that was legit,
Yeah. So do you think that technology helps expand creativity, or can it sometimes limit it as well?
Good questions.
Yeah, good questions.
Yeah.
I think we get, maybe I can only speak for myself, is I sometimes get lost in the latest cool toy, right? So I can spend hours because it used to be a plugin, that, oh, I have to have this plugin, then I will be the most amazing animator on earth, right? And now it's like, oh, there's this new 3D program, and I would, anyway, I used to try to I wasted a lot of time staying on top of all of that because I viewed the tool as sort of something that I needed. Now I think as I've gotten older and maybe just burned out on trying to learn every new thing, and I've realized the tools, they are just tools. And I think as they get better, like with the rotoscoping example of the dog, there are things that are just saving a lot of tedious work that I welcome, and I think that's a great thing. But I think in the end, it's the human behind the computer who's making decisions and deciding what pixels to put on the screen. That's ultimately going to be always the case for a good story.
Yeah, and the one thing I'd say is hopeful about generative AI is that no matter what, there is still a creative person behind the generative image that needs to make a choice, that needs to make a choice about framing, that needs to make a choice about performance, there will always need to be a human touch to take whatever this computer just outputs and still make sure this still makes sense. So the humans will always be needed.
So.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open it up to questions shortly, but I'm curious to know, for any animators that are in the audience, what skills do you think matter the most right now that aren't talked about?
I'd first say there's a lot of niches in animation. Very quickly in my process, at least, I'm I need cleanup artists, and that's a very specific job that I feel like animation schools don't really teach you too well because they're just make something, make it rough, make your thesis, go. That's important. Just getting really good at that one part of the animation pipeline that you really love. If you're I am a character designer, I want to go all in on that. Make your character design portfolio as beautiful and luscious as possible. Or you can be a generalist and still have a good time. But especially if you want to get a portfolio review by a big studio, that's the kind of frame you got to work with when you apply. Yeah.
I agree with that answer.
Yeah. It's competitive.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there are any voices that are left out of animation right now that are maybe underrepresented that should be?
For sure, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it depends on which side, but I imagine in the 3D animation side, maybe you're out there in LA and seeing it in the studios, but it's still pretty male dominated.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. Maybe because it's more technical somehow, but I think that is slowly changing. And I'm sure it's also extremely white male dominated. But maybe because you need a more expensive computer also to do a lot of this stuff. There's probably a socioeconomic side to it as well.
I also want to say that's also why indie animation is also more important than ever. There's beautiful queer stories and underrepresented stories, and people they're I don't see myself in the stuff Disney's putting out or whatever big studio's putting out. I'm making this character and I'm putting it out there. So I feel again, it's that burgeoning place where people can find characters they identify with. Start posting your art, start making these are my characters, be loud about this is my work, and you can start building a really good portfolio just with small little clips and small little shots.
And just like anything in art school, put stuff out there. Don't be afraid to. I think both of us somehow got the gumption to take those first steps into this thing. You have to be a little bit crazy, and of course people are going to judge you, and people are always harsh on artists, but you're doing it, you do it. You're doing what they can't do. You're putting it out there, you're making it, and ultimately, if you're good at it, you're going to love it, and people will respond.
Yeah.
So do we have any questions for the audience? See a question back there?
Hi, it's me.
Hi, Hannah.
You talk a lot about your characters, and it's characters that's shaping them, giving them personalities and color and whatnot. Can you talk to me a bit about world building? What's the importance of that, the process behind that, in coordinates with your characters?
So the question is about world building for your characters.
My background artists would love your question because it's so important. And if you come from live action, you know how important production design is. And that's kind of the same with animation. Those backgrounds are, you're doing an entire color script as well of your story, going, all right, we start with these kind of colors in this world, and when our character travels here, the colors become this in that world. And it's very potent to the emotional storytelling, and same with lighting. Just like in cinematography, animators are always thinking about lighting as well. So getting detailed, getting specific, all the same principles you would in production design are even more important in animation.
And the tools, like in the world of 3D, have been developed. I find it very interesting. So you create, let's say, the topography of whatever your world is, an alien planet or, you know, an island somewhere, and then you have to run erosion on this surface. There's these programs have the ability to then do that. And all of a sudden it looks like much more realistic, because in the real world things age and erode, and then you have to create biomes. You're now populating this entire thing with trees that might be at different elevations, and anyway, all that is off in the distance. Nobody notices it, but again, they notice it on some level. If your scene happens to call for that. Also, an interesting thing in Avatar, I didn't do this obviously, but they were talking about some of the scenic artists on that. They were shooting all these jungle scenes, and everything was looking a little bit fake, and nobody could quite put their finger on why it was. The foliage all looked great. Every single part of it looked great, but it still didn't feel right. And this happens a lot in animation, because there's so many things we just don't notice but we somehow feel it's off when it's missing. Anyway, it turned out that in every scene in Avatar, they added just 60 little mosquitoes or bugs floating around. You don't notice them, but it's 60 of them in every single shot. And all of a sudden people are like,
did they get credited?
No.
No.
Mosquito artist. But, you know, I wouldn't have thought of that, but yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot more little things moving around in every single moment of our lives that make it this, and without it, all of a sudden it just feels like a little too pristine or perfect, and it just feels off, and anyway, I love that kind of thing.
An unrecognized stage of animation is the compositing process, which is the very last part. VFX compositing. In 2D, it's when the animation characters in the background finally meld together, and that is really where you can kind of add some of that dust, add some of those light rays, blur things out, make things have parallax, make things feel like a real lived-in world, and that's such an important stage. And you know the difference between a project with really good compositing and really poor, because it's just a little too crisp and computery, you know?
That's part of why animation is so hard, because you think about, you know, you're telling a story, and you're animating characters or whatever, but you have to think about all these things you never normally would think about. A building, you probably noticed this before, but the windows on buildings sometimes reflect the light onto the building across the street from them. You get these like X marks or whatever that happen there. If you're creating a scene as an animator and you add that little detail to it, people are going to go, "That is your scene looks so beautiful, or so real, or it had some soul to it." Anyway, something that an animator has to notice this stuff and care enough to then take the time to try to implement it. They don't have to, but obviously this is something I'm talking about right now.
Very similar to live action, I will make like a pitch deck, I will make mood boards, I'll get references of other animated shorts or films I love. A big inspiration, strangely, for the nightmare scene in Worm was Tale of Princess Kaguya. That like sketchy charcoal angriness on the paper. I was like, we need this kind of energy by the scene. And I would literally be like, part 1 of the film looks like Ernest and Celestine. Part 2 is dark and depressing. You know, like you really want to map out and get all that good inspo. And then you get to kind of hand it off to a concept artist, make some moment paintings, just being like, this is what probably one frame of the film will look like. Highly recommend not skipping that stuff, because you can easily overlook the beautiful job of a concept artist, and then you get to have fun with character designs and start building that world out. It's a fun, development's a fun stage in animation. It's just the actual animation production that's not fun.
Any other questions in the audience?